I study women, I study health, and I study the effects of hormonal involvement on behavior, but I never connected the dots between the hormones in my birth control pill influencing my brain.
Research professor and psychologist Sarah Hill studies social behavior at TCU in Fort Worth, Texas. Over the last 3 years, she's been exploring how birth control affects the female brain. Her research stemming from her own experience with the pill.
I was about 17 when I first went on the pill. I was on it until I had my daughter when I was 28.
Sarah says birth control allowed her the ability to pursue her dreams.
One of the things that the pill has really allowed women to do is to plan. We're able to dream big, set these really long-term educational goals and career goals, and actually feel motivated enough to go and do those things.
After completing her education and having 2 kids, Sarah went off birth control and says she started to feel different.
I was on it for more than a decade without stopping because it worked for me. But then when I went off of it, it felt like I woke up again. I was cooking, I was exercising again, I was listening to music, I enjoyed sex.
So she began to study why this was happening.
I'd come across some research showing that the pill has these really provocative effects on things as wide-ranging as women's relationship and sexual satisfaction, and that the pill can even influence women's stress responses.
Now Sarah's sharing what she's learned and hopes other women are more informed about their choices.
The idea here is to give women the information so that way they can actually have informed conversations with their doctors and make the best decision for themselves about who they want to be and how they want to be protecting themselves from pregnancy.
And welcome back. We are talking about our series, Women's Wellness Disruptors, with Maria Shriver. And we are going to talk with research professor and psychologist Sarah Hill.
She's the author of the new book. It's called This Is Your Brain on Birth Control, The Surprising Science of Women, Hormones, and the Law of Unintended Consequences. And also joining us this morning is Dr. Tara Shirazian, an OBGYN at NYU Langone Health here in New York City. So good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Let's dig in. We've been talking during the commercial break, just so you know. Yes. So let's just be simple here. You say you're not anti-birth control. You're just pro-information. Yeah. Give us the laundry list, if you will, of what you found in the connection between birth control and what's happening in our bodies.
Right. So what I found in my research is that the birth control pill influences a whole range of psychological processes in ways that can influence things like who you're attracted to, who you choose as a romantic partner, the nature of your stress response, your ability to experience pleasure, and a whole lot of other things.
This was what's always amazing to me, because most women take birth control, right, so that they don't get pregnant. And you're saying it actually had a negative effect on your sex life, and you kind of became a different person. You woke up after you went off. That's going to be like, whoa, to most women.
Yeah, well, it's sort of a great irony of our time, right? That we take the birth control pill so that way we can have sex, but then you take it and you're not interested. For a long time, I thought that the way that the birth control pill worked was by preventing me from having any sex, which of course is going to prevent you from getting pregnant. But it can, it really decreases your levels of free testosterone to such a degree that it can really put a number into the works when it comes to your sex drive. It changes your hormonal profile in a way that's not favorable to sex.
Do you think this book and this discussion will make women want to go off the pill, because you can now track your cycles really through technology in many ways?
Yeah, well, I think actually the irony is, as I've noticed over the last decade or so taking care of women, the younger women, the millennials, already don't want to be on birth control. I mean, they already come in and say, please, Dr. Shirazian, I want to be hormone-free. And it's amazing, actually, because it's definitely a changing trend. So I will say the younger generations are much more in tune with the sort of pluses and minuses of hormones. Many don't want to use any form of hormonal contraceptive. Many use alternative forms of even menstrual products like the Diva Cup or organic tampons. I mean, this new wave of products is really because women do want to be hormone-free.
But there are reasons why your doctor could put you on birth control, but there's also 100 different types of birth control, so it's almost like a trial and error to see what works for you, if anything, right?
Absolutely. I mean, there's so many different types. There's different categories. We have pills, we have IUDs, we have the NuvaRing, we have hormonal IUDs, non-hormonal IUDs. So I think there's a huge range. And actually, for some women, it's really, really important. Women who have pelvic pain, excess menstrual bleeding, can't go to work because of their cycle.
It regulates their cycle, right?
Absolutely.
And a lot of young women being put on the pill for acne, and also, but they're not told, because I have two daughters in their 20s, they're not told about what the pill could do to your brain. They're not told about the long-term effects of any of this.
Well, I think that like part of the reason that women are starting to move away from it in the younger generations is I think that they haven't had the information. And I think that women are, you know, sort of, they're a little bit more savvy, I think, than maybe I was when I was as young as these women are, in terms of being concerned about putting something to their body where they know that they're experiencing psychological side effects. I mean, that's the thing that women always talk about when they're talking about the pill is not the risk of pulmonary embolism. It's about how it makes them feel. And I think that, you know, until now, women haven't really had an explanation for why they're feeling that way.
Yeah.
And
Does age matter? I mean, if you're talking about a 17-year-old versus someone who's 43, I mean, how does that factor into all of this?
Well, I think age does matter because as women age, their cycles change, how they feel changes, their levels of anxiety change. You know, sort of everything that goes on in your life shapes you and also has an impression sort of on your brain and how you feel. So I do think that age is very much part of the equation. At menopause, a lot of women in perimenopause and in sort of that early menopausal period will benefit sometimes from the pill for symptomatic relief often. Many feel that it lifts some of the brain fog, I've heard. But we do know there are risks. So there are risks to staying on it for long periods of time.
What are the risks of, I mean, I'll just say it, I was on it for 15 years. Are there any residual risks now that you're off it, or once you're done, it's done? Or are there hormonal impacts that perhaps last? Maybe that's why I had trouble having my second child. You know, I mean, is there any research that goes into that?
In the research world that I'm in, there's not enough research about the long-term effects of birth control pills on like long-term outcomes. I mean, I will say one thing just to keep with this is consistent with the age piece, and that is, you know, if somebody's younger than 19, when their brain is still developing, you know, I think that we should be a little bit cautious with, you know, our use of the birth control pill. And I think that for a lot of women, right, even these younger than 19-year-old women, it will still be the best option that's available because it's so effective. And at that point in women's lives, it's so important not to get pregnant unexpectedly. But the brain is still developing, and that's another thing that we don't know a whole lot about. There hasn't been enough research on the way that, you know, pill use prior to the, you know, finalization of brain development influences women's brain health long term.
So it's just information. I think that's the takeaway.
And the most
information. Go ahead.
But I do think also that we should always, you know, fight to sort of have access to contraception. So let's not forget that piece.
No, absolutely. That's what I said, information.
Because pregnancy and preventing pregnancy is extremely important. And for many young women, you know, they may not have alternatives to that in many places, especially in this country. So I think, you know, making sure we maintain those channels for those women is extremely important. But you should think about it for your own specific case.
And also to make sure that what works for her doesn't work for you, doesn't work for you, and to know your body and not think that the doctor has all the answers, in all due respect, right?
But this is part of the conversation, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
good stuff.
I want to thank you both for coming here. The book is called Your Brain on Birth Control. And if you have a wellness topic that you'd like us to tackle, please go to thethirdhourtoday.com and let us know what that is, because there are so many things going on in women's health, and that we want to bring you stories about that.
It's going to be good stuff. Why don't we start with what we talked about during commercial break?
Oh,
thank you, Marie, for being here, bringing the story. Very, very important for people watching.